Welcome back, everybody. We're so glad that you're here and joining in today. These past few weeks have been awesome. Just watching everybody comment on these videos and share them with their friends. It's been a real pleasure getting to know some of you a little bit more through the messaging and the texting, and we're just so thankful for you guys and your support. We simply want to experience and share the love of God in Vermont and in communities around the country. We're calling this online community 802 Anywhere, and we cannot do this without you. So we're so thankful for you guys. Keep sharing and engaging with what God is getting started here. I know we'll all be better for it. This message is actually part 2 of a 2-part conversation on what it means to be meek. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend you check it out. You can find it wherever YouTube videos are sold. Today, we're going to be talking about lights and nuclear bombs and toilet paper. Should be fun. Let's just get started. We're talking about the word meek from an English translation and Jesus' words found here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. He says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." The best word we can come up with to describe what Jesus is talking about here is a word, frankly, none of us use anymore, right? He might as well have said, "Blessed are the nincompoops, for they will inherit the earth." Like, we almost didn't even have a word for what he is talking about. And here's why. Americans today are part of a Western culture or a European civilization. A great deal of the Western Hemisphere can actually trace its culture, its values, language, and belief systems back to Europe. And nearly all of Europe can trace its culture back to what historians refer to as classical culture. Classical culture contains the values and the belief systems of the ancient Romans and the ancient Greeks. So here's basically all we really need to know about that. The teachings of Jesus were not compatible with this ancient Greek and Roman culture, and the words and teachings of Jesus are not compatible with our culture today. I mean, the words and actions of Jesus, they actually come against the power structures of the Greeks and the Romans. The things he said and did were offensive to them. You see, meekness is not something Greeks or Romans or Brits or Americans frankly want anything to do with. They're not interested in it. And as we learned in part 1, when Jesus is talking about meekness, he's really talking about power. Power under control. Everything centers around this question of power. So today we're going to be asking 2 questions. Number 1, where does our power come from? And number 2, what do we do with the power that we do have? So let's start with the first question. Where does our power come from? Like, where do we get our strength? What is the energy that is animating us? Where do we get our power from? Maybe a better way to put it, what power are you buying into? What power do you subscribe to? Jesus teaches us that there are basically 2 types of power. There's power over and power under. We catch a glimpse of this idea during an exchange he has with his disciples in Matthew chapter 20. I'm in Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 to 28. It says this: Jesus called his disciples aside and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the superiors exercise authority over them. It shall not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So, we have 2 kinds of power here. We have the power of the Greeks and the Romans and the Brits and the Americans, right? We got worldly power. We'll call this power over. Okay? It's power over versus power under. So let's talk about power over for a second. The Greeks and the Romans and the Brits and the Americans, they lord their power over people. Power over the people. They lord it over them. They accumulate power and strength, and they use that power to subject people under them, right? Power over. It's using the power you have, lording it over other people. So it's all about winning. It's all about accumulating as much leverage and influence and resources as humanly possible, so you can crush your enemies. It's about retaliation. It's about control. You can use the power to come up over others and push them down. It's about bullying. It's about getting even. It's kind of like drowning, you know? You're drowning, your friend's drowning, and you take your power and you shove them under so you can get a little bit ahead, right? That's power over. You push them down. It's about hierarchy. It's about politics. It's about social totem poles. It's about corporate ladders. It's about greed. This is the stuff of kingdoms and empires. It's about winning. So much winning. It's about the Yankees. It's about the Patriots. It's about cheating. Just kidding. It's about domination. And you know what? Like, this stuff is so predictable. It is so lame. It's so boring. It's so exhausting, draining. It's a theme played out over and over and over and over again. You can see it everywhere. And once you see it, it's difficult to unsee it. And I'm telling you, the stuff of Jesus, the stuff Jesus teaches, is not compatible with this type of power. When I was in middle school, I might as well just tell you. When I was in middle school, I was such a loser. And I had just two friends, and they were losers too, all right? We were dorks. We couldn't play hacky sack. We weren't coordinated enough. Our parents wouldn't buy us airwalks, and we couldn't get the jean coats with the chains on it. And instead of listening to Stained and Korn, we were listening to puppets sing about Jesus for fun, all right? We were total losers, okay? Well, we would sit by ourselves in the dark corner of the cafeteria, and we would just be sitting there picking food out of our braces. We would just be hoping and praying that a teacher would come by and sit with us. One day, though, a really popular girl, like, it was amazing. She left the popular table, and she came our way, and she sat with us at our table. And then she told us that her youth pastor challenged her to sit with the less popular kids at lunch and learn their stories. So here she was. But her dad, who was also the school's gym teacher, he saw this from across the room in the cafeteria. And he makes a beeline and he heads straight for our table. And he goes, "Susie, what the jump rope, what the 50-yard dash are you doing over here at this table? Get back to your popular friends at the popular table where you belong. You're running laps when you get home." Did you catch the paranoia? Power over is everywhere. And it's stupid. And it's exhausting. And our culture is all about it. Our culture says, get as much power and wealth and influence and stuff as you possibly can. Climb the pyramid, climb the ladder, move up in life. The higher we get, the more stuff we can lord over other people. Right? That's our culture in a nutshell. But Jesus, he is talking about a different kind of power. Remember, he says, not so with you. They are lording power over people. Not so with you. Jesus is talking about a different kind of power, right? He's talking about power under, right? Where you take your strength and your power and your energy and you use it to come up under people and serve them. Jesus would be famous for this. He would hang out with all the people that society considered at the bottom. Right? He would hang out with all the people who were considered low on the totem pole of society. And he hung out with the lepers and the drunk people and the prostitutes and the poor, the disenfranchised. He would hang out with the kids and the women and the foreigners and the Samaritans. He would use his immense, godly powers for good. He would serve people. He would take the basin and the towel and he would wash his people's feet, right? He laid his life down for people. Check out this scripture from Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2, 3 through 8. Do nothing, right? Say nothing. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. That's the most shameful and embarrassing way to die. The Son of Man, Jesus, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. See, he took on the nature of a servant. He was willing to lay his life down for each and every one of us. Remember the phrase, all for one and one for all? I think it's from the Three Musketeers, right? All for one for all. That's power over. Right? If everybody is all for the one, that king, that emperor, then maybe, if he feels like it, the king will then be one for all. Right? Lay your life down for the emperor or the God king. Jesus is doing something different here, though. It isn't all for one and one for all. It's one for all, and therefore all for all. You see, Jesus is the example of what it means to be meek. He wants his followers to be meek as well. And he's starting a kingdom on this mountain, isn't he? The kingdom of heaven. But it isn't a country, it's a way of life. It transcends countries and cultures. It's bigger than that. This kingdom will have no end. I want you to see something with me for a moment. America is perhaps the greatest power over country the world has ever seen. Arguably the greatest economy in the history of the world. Even in the middle of COVID, it is insane how wealthy the United States is, historically speaking. And when it comes to military might, the world has never seen anything quite like America. We have more firepower than any other nation in history. I want you to check this out with me for a moment. There are 195 nations on earth today. And one of those countries, the United States of America. We've been a thing for a little over 244 years. We currently make up 4% of the world's population. But this country with only 4% of the world's population is also in control of 32% of the global weapons market. 94 other nations depend on the United States to supply them weapons. For the fiscal year of 2020, the Department of Defense's budget is $721.5 billion with a B, dollars. 8.9 billion of that is what the Pentagon considers essential spending, which means it's what we actually need to keep us safe, which that means that $712.6 billion is discretionary. Could you imagine 98% of your office budget being discretionary? That is a lot of office parties, okay? $721 billion on defense. China spends $177 billion. They're in second place. We spend more on our military than the next 15 countries combined. Bases? Oh, we got bases. It's all about that base. Russia has 21 military bases on foreign soil, someone else's land. Hey man, what are you doing? The United Kingdom, They have 20 military bases on foreign soil. Hey man, that's my land, get off my lawn. France, 15. America, get this, America has nearly 80 military, I'm sorry, what? Hold on. What? No way. For real? Like for real? Like you've got to be kidding me. All right, I'll tell them. That was Lindsay on an imaginary phone. It's not 80, it's 800 military bases on foreign soil that we know about. America has 800 military bases on someone else's land. We operate 95% of the world's military bases. That's insane. It's more than any other country in the history of the world. We have 4 times as many military bases as there are countries on Earth. We lead the world in defense spending. We lead the world in incarcerations. We are doing our level best to ensure the safety both here at home and abroad. The United States of America, the Pentagon, spends more on war each year than all 50 states spend on healthcare, education, welfare, and public safety combined. In fact, the Pentagon spends more every 5 seconds than the average American earns in a year. Santa, did you know that a recent study showed that just 100 nuclear warheads going off at the same time would create an ash cloud of radioactivity that would block out the sun and eliminate all life on Earth like the dinosaurs? Just 100 nuclear warheads at the same time. Isn't that insane? That's crazy. Did you know this? That there are currently 16,000 nuclear warheads on Earth that we know about. And 93% are controlled by the United States and Russia. Only one country has used them. Psalm 20 verse 7 says this, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." Chariots and horses back at that time were weapons of war. So it'd be like, some trust in drones and nukes and submarines, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Remember what Jesus said to Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane at the end of his life. Matthew chapter 26 verse 52, he says, "Peter, put your sword back in its place, for whoever lives by the sword dies by the sword." We are doing our level best to trust in our military might, to buy into that power. And it is a great deal of power. Like, I get it. Like, I understand. Like, so many people put our faith and hope and trust in the military might of the United States. That goes for not just military power, but economic power too. We are arguably the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And when we get scared, what do? We run into the stores and we buy as much stuff that we can get our hands on. We will clear the shelves of gun stores. Good grief. When we see snow coming, we'll clear out the store's shelves of milk and bread. Do we pour the milk on the Wonder Bread? Like, what are we doing here? When COVID-19 hit, in February, March, we ran out to the stores and we grabbed as much of this as we possibly could, right? As much toilet paper as humanly possible. We are one of a handful of nations on Earth that struggles with the mental disorder known as hoarding. We relieve stress by shopping, and we add stress to our lives by all the extra stuff that we have. We're spending money we don't have on stuff we don't need, and then the cycle repeats. It stresses us out, so what do? We go shopping again, and then before you know it, you have a basement full of stuff. Same thing goes for food too. We are the most obese nation on Earth. We are the most obese nation on Earth, we're the wealthiest nation on Earth, and we have the largest military on Earth. So I got a question for you, America. How's it going? How are we doing? Do we feel safe yet? Do we feel secure? I mean, it feels like we're about to come apart at the seams. Things seem really shaky right now. Christians, listen up. Listen real close. Lean in. The church has got to stop chasing after political power. I'm not sure who needs to hear this today, but we need to know this. Jesus is not a Democrat. Jesus is not a Republican. Jesus isn't even an American. Like, Christian, stop putting your hopes in a president, in a member of Congress, in a Supreme Court justice. You cannot legislate heart change. This is not how we change the world. Being married to political power, like a leech, is such a cheap and counterfeit way to change the world. It not only corrupts the church and distracts from the mission of Jesus, it also destroys our witness to a watching world. You may feel real good after that Facebook fight you had, but a watching world is going, I don't even know if I'm into what Jesus is about based on what they're saying and doing right now. Those of you fighting on Facebook, knock it off. Stop it. That's not power under. That's not meekness. Cut it out. Stop it. There are better ways to change the world. You're supposed to speak truth to power, not chase after it. Power over is not the way of Jesus. America may be the greatest power over nation in the history of the world. But here's the thing about power over. It's only a matter of time before the power is over. And in a few thousand years, America will be dust on the page of a history book that nobody cares to read anymore. We're going to be a footnote, a relic in the museum if we're lucky. It does not matter how powerful we are. It just doesn't matter. This thing will come to an end. It will pass away. It will not last. America will go down the same way Rome and Greece and Persia and Egypt did. You see, empires fall, but you want to know what lasts? What endures? What has staying power? The meek. The people who speak loudly by putting the stick down. They are part of a kingdom that changes the world. A new kind of power. One that comes up under people and serves them. The ones who use their powers for good. The ones who don't retaliate. Who don't hold grudges. Who don't obsess over getting even. The people who don't get their energy from politics and battles and drama on Facebook and Twitter. The people who serve people. Who love people when they least expect it and least deserve it. The people who give instead of hoard. Generosity over greed. The people who put their sword down. The meek. They change their families, their workplaces, their communities, and their countries for the better. That's the kingdom Jesus is building. A kingdom without an end. You see, empires will come and go, but this, meekness, that's real power. And that lasts forever. So blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Love you guys. God bless you. We'll see you back here next week.